Hey, what's up, Silas? Here. This is part 31 of the Writing on Trump's Wall, where I read the post-its that I recorded from the wall on the Union Square subway station a few days after Donald J. Trump had won his first term as President of the United States of America back in 2016. So I normally start these with some current affairs, and I was trying to think back to last week and see what had gone on, and it's many things, but just recently this weekend, I just saw some report about a head writer on the Tucker Carlson show was found through some investigative journalism by someone on CNN Business to have been posting some supposedly horrifically racist things on this certain chat room. I don't know, some kind of chat room where he was posting. One of the things was something like he was talking about, yeah, he would be happy get a free dental some free kind of dental procedure by, I think, an Asian or something. And then he said something about a jet black Congo N-word. Would you allow them to do something? So there's definitely some material, some content and things that you were saying was inflammatory. He was using a pseudonym to say this. You look at the guy and, hey, what's with his background and things like this? And he says, oh yeah, I'm one of the people who's the head writer for the Tucker Carlson show. And the covering of this has been showing photos of Tucker Carlson. And I did a recent video talking about how, two recent videos, one with Tucker Carlson just like, is it an op? Because some of the things he says, like, oh, you can't have inherited guilt. I'm like, wait, that's what Christianity is based on. One of the things Christianity is based on. And then the separate video talking about how the Rachel Maddow show and the Tucker Carlson show are opinion pieces. I don't really consider this to be just straight out news. They say things, and then I go out and actually try to see what people are saying about it. In many cases, I actually will have something like I'll listen to a speech by Trump, and then I'll go in and see how does Tucker cover this, how does Rachel Maddow cover this, and other people. Or I'll see an event. I'll be watching a live stream of a protest. I'll see somebody go in and shoot somebody through the window of the car, and then I'll actually go listen. What does Tucker Carlson say about this? What does Rachel Maddow say about this? What do other people say about this? I'll go and I'll watch some live stream of something, of some car on a highway with some people who have blocked it off with some vehicles, and this car will swerve around them and will hit two people, and then I see how is this covered by the people. Is this a protester with a luxury car hit somebody, or is it something where people were in the street and they unfortunately got hit? So there's these things that I go through. That's my relationship with people like Tucker Carlson, Rachel Maddow, and other people. Going even further to the news, I don't find it to be coincidental when I go and I watch local news here in Kenya. There's Citizen, KBC, Kenya Broadcasting Channel, KTN is Kenya Television Network. Is that what it is? Television News. There's another one I'm forgetting here, I think. But I'll switch between them. It's like NTV, KTN, KBC. Or is KBC changed to no. All right, and what's it called? And Citizen. But I'll switch through, and they'll be covering pretty much the same stories. Why are they doing this? Because they is an actual business. They understand which stories actually sell, how to cover certain things. You go to international news, Al Jazeera, BBC, Sky News. You go to MSNBC. You go to Fox. When you're actually following these, when you're following their international broadcasts, they're normally also touching on the same topics. There are writers, there are scripts, there are plans, there is a programming to do this. So this whole idea that, I look at Tucker Carlson, he has a writer, and I can't believe shows that it's fake news. It's like, nope. Things are scripted. People read from teleprompters. Even your politicians, when you go actually look at a politician speaking, their speeches, their speechwriters, this stuff is packaged. Some of these things are the things that people actually believe. But now when you go into something and you say, if this person was found to have written these supposedly horrific racist things, and on the CNN article, they actually put a little trigger warning at the start. Editor's warning. Some of the things this person wrote have been written, and they are vile, and they might trigger. And that's the thing. They understand who their actual base is. I don't think this is just priming these people to get even more angsty and expecting something and trying to like frame what this person says. It might do that somewhat, but I think majority of the people who do read that would read that and get really triggered by it. I mean, not majority, but a significant amount of them would actually do that. I read that and like, okay, I've heard many worse things. People like trolls saying things like that. I don't know how much this person believes it. It doesn't matter. Just like when I read that thing of Karl Marx talking to Engels. We wrote a letter to Engels talking about LaSalle, talking about how he's this Jewish nigger and things like that. I don't really consider that to be too much informative about Marxism, about his communist policies. His communist policies are wrong, not because he might have been racist towards LaSalle and other people. They're wrong independently of that. So even if this man is found out to be the second coming of that one Austrian guy that was a failed artist and ended up leading this political party, if he actually did this political National Socialist Workers Party, if this is the second coming of that person and that person is trying to initiate this, what he writes for somebody else to read could still be valuable and true and factual without it having to do with anything to do with his racism. If that one Austrian guy woke up one morning and was like, look outside, it's raining, it was raining. Just because he was also that despotic leader doesn't discount that. So when you have these people looking at someone this, and it's going to be like, oh my God, this proves that Tucker Carlson is a horrible racist. Look at this writer that he had. Some of these people are Marxists, avowed Marxists. Some people in Black Lives Matter movement are avowed Marxists. Are they avowed racists because Marx was one? I don't know. Maybe they think that, but chances are they don't. But let's just get into the reading now. It wasn't more like a current affairs. I guess it's a very current thing because it just happened, I think, 2 days ago. But just some thoughts about things that are happening. And I have a proposal to you. If there's a Joe Biden speech, a Donald Trump speech, something coming up soon, go there and set the date of when that thing is actually happening and try to take off listening to any news for a few days before it, and then go in and listen to the speech live. Listen to what they actually say. And then go and listen to a range, one that you think is a news source that you think normally says things that you agree with, a news source that you think is on the opposite, and a news source that you think is even-handed, just in the middle or somewhere. It doesn't have a bias one way or another. Listen to those and see how, if they cover them in the same way, what are the things they talk about, who are they focusing on. I think that would be something educative to do. I think that would be a positive thing. I don't know how many people have done this, but if you haven't, I suggest you try doing this. So now actually reading the post-its. The first one is, Trump is dumb. Okay, I don't know what to say to this. I tried to say figuratively and literally. What do they literally mean figuratively? I don't think they don't literally mean that he is a dump, like, or a dump of ideas, or a dump like the slang of being feces, because he's actually a human being. But maybe they literally think of him as a feces human being, as a shit human being. So with that one, I guess, do they still think that? But with a post-it like this, again, it's so limited. I think they're just saying, oh, you know it's true. Girl, you know it's true. Oh, 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 he's a dump. So this is somebody who's signaling, I think, to people who already have the background that they expect would understand this. And posting this on a wall in New York City, it's not too surprising that probably a lot of people would agree with his sentiment and would think up things of why. Now, some people, on the other hand, might think Trump is due to a dump. Due to the dump that the country was becoming, someone like Trump came in to kind of clear out that dump, to drain the swamp, drain the dump that was in the swamp. Some people might think that on the inverse. But I think from this kind of phrasing, I think this is more somebody who was anti-Trump. Now, since I don't know why they thought this, I don't know if those things have been confirmed or have been reduced. But as I've mentioned, I still think Trump is going to win, despite all the things going on in culture and society and the covers and things like that, and the polls. They're still using these polls. They've already admitted with the polls that they haven't found a way to kind of notify and talk to certain groups as silent majority. I recently did a post talking to the silent majority and saying, hey, I get you're saying you're silent majority, and from Trump's win, it shows that you kind of have. And my general observations about the United States of America, people are more pro-liberty and pro-individualism. It's part of what Americana is. that they're not going to absorb and accept these kind of socialist things. But at the same point of saying, by just being quiet and not even having conversations with people in your personal life, is that really helping? Because there are some people who are willing to be out there and actually get violent with these things. So is there more conversation? Is there more actual discussion? Is there actually more being done besides just being like, yeah, Trump will do it or somebody else will do it? I don't know. Dump everything on Trump and be like, yeah, he'll fix it. And I don't have to actually have these tough conversations or conversations that I think are tough in my own life. Okay, next one. Take measures to mitigate climate change. And I'll throw the tyrant one in there too as well. So let's deal with that first one first. Take measures to mitigate climate change. I think we do that on a regular basis. If you have an air conditioning unit in your house, you're mitigating climate change. You're changing the climate in your house. But most people consider that to be a positive thing. You look at certain places. If somebody's living in Antarctica, and there's humans living there right now, human beings can live pretty much anywhere. You can live under the sea. It can be, and there's actual other things that can live by vents, like heating vents in the ocean bottom. Crazy stuff going on. Just reading this new sci-fi thing where like this creature who supposedly lives, like they're not sure if this actual creature is an entire planet, is just a water-based planet, but these juggler type of creatures which you go into the water and then it breaks down your DNA and these tendrils enter you and they deal with you and they break you down and they build you back up and they give you different abilities and they scan you and they communicate to you. But they're talking about, it might actually be something that is one organism that's actually powered by these thermal vents. These tendrils go to these thermal vents at the bottom of the ocean. And the odd thing about that is like there's a thermal vent out there which is super hot, but then because it's in the bottom of the ocean, it's not getting sunlight. It's also really cold water. But anyway, so those things going together. These things, when they talk about the climate change, what are you changing the climate for? How is the climate being changed? What are the reasons you're changing the climate? If you're in the woods at night, you're lost out there, you chop down some wood and you burn some wood out there at night and you have that bonfire going, you're changing the climate in that area. You are damaging the woods there. But that is also keeping the animals that would eat your face at bay. They're keeping them away. So in that situation, that changing of the climate, I consider that to be a positive thing, because I am team human flourishing. As Alex Epstein, great guy. He had this really good podcasting with Michael Schallenberger, where he's talking about, this is something that also wasn't current affairs type of thing, made the rounds. My apologies as a climate scientist for bringing up all of this fear and things like this. And there's things talking about that where it's like, look, human flourishing, if we're changing the climate, the humans are controlling the climate and we are changing the climate more than ever. I think in any means, we have more means to change the climate. But is it changing it for the positive or the negative? If we go back to say, let's stop using nuclear power, let's stop using coal power, let's stop using this sort of electricity, what are we going to go back to? Are we going to go back to chopping down trees en masse? You look at countries in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, developing nations, and the amount of trees that are actually chopped down. I was looking at something like, there's this one documentary about the oil industry in Nigeria, and the oil is very close to the surface, but you look at all the illegal or informal type of places or the corruption that goes on with people just burning oil in the woods and just polluting places because things are not done in a certain way. And then you look at first world countries that people there are being told, you are the ones destroying the world, you are the ones destroying the environment. But are they? Or when they have this huge actual drilling ship being pulled around the coast by this amazing technology being put in a location with all these fail-safes to actually prevent something, then if there is a leak, there's all this money and influence going in to actually go in. Why do you have certain places that value that, but these other places don't? Why is it, what is preventing these companies from actually being able, the people who actually have the interest in doing certain things cleaner and better for society and for humans, to go to Nigeria and do that? Is it because there are certain laws and limitations where they're saying, we have to have, this is for Nigerians only, but then somehow the Nigerians, are they actually treating it and doing it in a certain way? I had this other reading I just did today. I'm going to post it sometime later about somebody posting about the black population in the world, and they were just talking about how outright they're like, Africans can't actually can actually count the amount of population that they have. They're saying they're too simple-minded to do that or something. So are they saying these people are just too simple-minded to actually have a better way of doing things? But if there are better ways of doing things, why don't we open up? Why don't we start taking down certain these limitations and regulations and borders and have more of a unity? And I think the world is heading that way anyway. But anyway, that was just more of a thing with the mitigative climate change. I don't know. I think we should take actions to mitigate climate change. But you see here with mitigate climate change, I think that is mitigate to say it is a negative way, and that's what I'm saying. There are some negative things. I think if we had fewer people relying on firewood for cooking and keeping warm, then that would mitigate some climate change, the negative sort of climate change. And I think a good way to do that would be to increase usage of things like nuclear power, because there's certain advanced nuclear power and energy that we use now that is excellent, and the amount of waste created from it can be limited and contained in much better ways than it was in the past. So that's just my thoughts on that. And as for Tyrant, I think this is related in that sense because it is tyrants of the old order who are controlling this new way. They understand the world is becoming globalized, but they're trying to keep their power. They're trying to maintain those old structures that were limiting humans, limiting the human animal, limiting us from being earthlings like we truly are. And like I was talking about in that previous part with that organism going into the bottom of the ocean, things like that. We can be a human organism, an earth organism in that sense, where the earth itself is almost just a cell, and we are the parts, mitochondria and all those other things of that cell. And then this cell itself ends up reproducing and putting life in the solar system, which is the organism. I talked about this before. And that's an organism that goes up and populates the galaxy, and then we end up being like a galactic life form going around like. Rah. Anyway, so all these kind of cool things that I could think of. So yeah, I think we need fewer tyrants. I hope that was something anti-tyrant, and I guess it was referring to Trump as a tyrant, but I don't know. Yeah, it's true. So next one, see if we can get one more in here. LGBT, something there, black, BLM, I don't know, women, immigrants, Muslims, I heart you, I love you. Okay, this is something that I've gotten more of an idea. I had a separate video talking about how progressivism is actually a way of life that demands there was a purity of mind, body, and soul. And that was this realization, and this is a realization that's spreading more, is there is some religious aspect to what we're seeing from the vocal political left, where it's not really too rational, but if you understand it, going below that religion, being a way of life, a structure that demands you do certain things, that requires a level of authoritarianism, then you can kind of understand why some of these groups and things like that may have some relations. Like I was talking about with Islam, because it seems you look at predominantly Muslim countries and you look at the immigration that's actually in those places, and it doesn't seem to be the kind of immigration that people in the United States of America seem to be advocating for. They seem to be very against it. They seem to be very controlled, and then the immigrants that actually do get into those places live under certain strict limitations. LGBTQ, when you look at that in Muslim countries, it's not the best place to be for most of those people, to openly actually be in that way. What does it say here? Women. Women, again, there's different issues. And as I've mentioned, I question how people actually say, you look at some of those places, you look at locations. Send me location. Send me location where you say women are treated X in X ways and men in all sorts of ways are treated better. I think you'll find the different figures where it's like men are treated worse in this one area and treated better in another area. Women are treated worse in this one area, treated better in one area. But in general, as a sexually dimorphic species, with women being the controlling factor of reproduction, if you don't have a society that protects and values the female, you will not exist for much longer. So I think different societies and different cultures will do this in different ways. I'm not a cultural relativist here. I think there are ways to do it that are better. I consider the Western way of doing certain things when it comes to gender relations preferable to the Middle Eastern way, to what's going on in general in Kenya. Although you look at the African tribes and things like that, there's reasons. I can understand why there's polygamy. I can understand why there's different gender roles in the villages, in the tribe that I'm from. I understand also already you can see it changing as people come to the cities, to Nairobi, and become more westernized and understand these different realities and different things to actually discuss and talk about. You still have situations where some women will be like, oh, I am a modern woman in that westernized sense. I'm working a job, doing this and this, I demand this and this. But then when it comes back to the actual gender roles of marriage, you say, I still need a man that can do this, can do that, will pay the dowry in this case, because they're still tied into that tribal kind of way. So there is those things to talk about to change around. We're growing, we're expanding, we're becoming globalized, we're becoming that human organism that I was talking about. And there are people who want to maintain certain structures because they benefit from them. And then there's other people, me, you, probably this person who posted this, we could probably agree with a lot of things that where we want some kind of progress, some kind of new ways of doing things because we are living in a new reality with new laws and new rules and things like that. Um, yeah, I think that's it for now. And one more pet peeve. This hasn't come up for a while, I think, in this series. But the immigrants, when they talk about this, I guess this is people who Trump is supposedly against. As I mentioned, Trump has been somebody on the Republican side who embraced the LGBT community during his campaign, which is something unprecedented for a Republican campaigner. And it just shows how things have changed. Even though evangelicals were a strong support contingent, that didn't alienate enough of them to lose the support because even Christianity, even faith and things like that, with their negative treatment of people in the homosexual, in the LGBTQ plus community, has also settled. If you're in that group, chances are you're living the best life you could possibly live if you're in a Western country. Um, but when it comes to this immigrant thing, this equation of immigrants, all immigration to be illegal immigration, it's not the same thing. Those are two very separate things. I think Trump just he might have announced his platform for the campaign soon or this weekend. I didn't actually get that on the weekends. I normally take time off of actually listening to news, but he wants to do some kind of point-based immigration system. Now I think that's a positive thing. I want to immigrate back to the United States of America, but I want to do it off of my own merit, off of being an actual net positive to the culture, not coming in and being like, oh, I need welfare, I need support, I need to actually work on like tax funded, actually state like institutions or things like that. I want to do it where it's like, look, I'm actually doing something where you're welcoming me in, and by me coming in, I'm like, thanks. I'm actually able to achieve more here than I was able to where I was. And it's also my thanks to you for letting me in by me giving back to you in some kind of way. I think that's a positive thing. Now, if you want to bring these kind of people in, if supposedly, according to people, these immigrants are net positives, not drains on the communities and cultures and societies that they're in, then I don't really see why you would be opposed to this. But some people want the immigrants in for other reasons, for more like voting for certain things or for certain ideas. Oh, you're this person, you should be voting this, and then we support this, so we want these people in. And that might be still in the right too, because I think people who will have probably qualify for this merit-based system would be like, let's not vote for more taxation. Let's vote for less regulation and these kind of things so we can have more ability to do these kind of things and do these other things. There's relations to these. These things are not entirely unrelated. So that's it for now. Like, share, subscribe. Till next time, this is part of the Writing on Trump's Wall. This is part 31. Like, share, subscribe. Let me know what you thought about the post-its in this one. And the post-its again where Trump is dumb, something about mitigating climate change and tyranny, and then the LGBTQ immigrants, Muslims, I love you. Love being that four-letter word again that I think is completely abused. Goodbye.